Your Life and Sex Island, Chapter 6, The Life and Sex Island, page 200. Well, we have our little fairy tale island that's a little scary. Not like Little Red Riding Hood or Hansel and Gretel, but gee, we seem to be awfully like the real world. Yeah, Trader Mac ruined the little paradise because he took all the money, just like the very rich have done to our country. Oh well, enough of this bullshit. Before I give you the numbers, let me present an overview of the economy from about 1908 to 2000 for your consideration. The First World War, then just called the Great War, they didn't suspect that we would need a numbering system for world wars, ended in 1918. We came out of the First World War with a huge debt, laughable by today's standards. The world's economies were in shambles. War kills not just people, it also kills economies. More or as many people starve from the war as are killed in the war. After the Great War, there was no warm and cuddly trend toward economic equality or justice, and there was no Truman Marshall Plan to rebuild the world, which would have stimulated our economy. The distance between the rich and the poor was vast. The Roaring Twenties did not roar for most, they growled. The aughts, tens, and twenties were periods of enormous engineering and inventive progress, but little or no wage progress. Productivity soared, wages sagged. Wealth rocketed, humanity reeled. Union membership, percent of non-farm labor, was about 6% in 1900 and rose to about 10% in 1910 and again to about 19% in 1920. Then, after the Great War, the super rich began a war on unions and membership declined to about 11% in 1930. This was part of the cause of the Great Depression. Yes, we need a numbering system, the first Great Depression. Most of the farmers were already in poverty. Farmers were about a third of the population then. Farm mortgage foreclosures rose from about 0.4% in 1920 to about 1.8% in 1927. About 1 out of 10 every 7 years. That's like if you lived on a block with 10 houses, one would be sold for back taxes every 7 years. About 4 million people quit farming, lost their farms in the 10 years before the Depression. All regular workers had trouble feeding their families. Unions were attacked by chattel legislators, cops, and armies. Police, the U.S. Army, and private armies such as Pinkerton murdered workers like cars kill possums, or more like Tyson kills chickens. The rich were impoverishing the economy by taking all of the loose cash. The people who were doing the work were not getting a fair share of the fruits of their labor. Warren G. Harding, president from 1921 to 1923, generally considered to be the worst president until that time, and his super-rich Treasury Secretary, Andrew Mellon, and the chattel legislature gave the super tax cuts to the super-rich. Top rate was cut from 77% to 24%, a tax reduction of almost 69% for the very rich. Calvin Coolidge, the second worst president until that time, continued with Mellon and the tax cuts. But there were still Lincoln progressives in the Republican Party until about 1932. And the Democrats were split between the pro-slavery states' rights Dixiecrats in the South and the progressives in the North. Having already built multi-million-dollar mansions, the rich, like Trader Mac, were desperate for a place to put their money, most of which was excess. In 1920, the average stock carried a PE of about 5. PE is the price-to-earnings ratio and can be looked at as the number of years it will take to double your money if earnings stay the same and you don't invest the gains as you get them. 10 years later, in 1930, the average PE was 32, more than 6 times higher. A stock that you could buy for 10 bucks in 1920 would cost you 60 bucks in 1930, and its value had not gone up. It was the same damn carved lava boat. People were paying way too much. The stock market acted as a huge money sponge to soak up all the surplus money, but not to create more value. Something like that happened to the lava boats and the Malarkey bird tail feathers on the Life and Sex Island. Many people, having watched the price of the stock rising forever, 10 years, thought it would never stop, and they borrowed money to buy stock. When the market dipped, they were forced to sell to stop their losses, or the broker sold automatically when their investment was gone. Soon everyone was selling. Someone wrote that there were no buyers, but of course there can be no selling unless there is buying and buyers. Some people were getting bargains. The stock market released huge amounts of cash, but it was in the hands of people who did not need it. The people who were starving had no cash and no jobs, and the rich were protected by private armies which they could buy cheap. Henry Ford had machine gun emplacements installed in his lawn. One of the super rich said that he could hire half the workers to kill the other half. Compassion flowed like crystallized honey. Oh damn, I have to stop again. There's plenty more. I will return. To purchase the book, click the link in the description below.